The world of Nickelodeon's hit cartoon SpongeBob SquarePants is a zany one to say the least. Who better to conceptualize Bikini Bottom for Broadway than Tony-winning designer David Zinn? We chatted with Zinn about creating the colorful, innovative sets and costumes for the Tony-nominated musical.
So when Tina Landau, the director, and I started working on this piece together, which was about 5.5 years ago, the very first thing, or kind of first subject of the workshop was really how do two-dimensional creatures, how does a two-dimensional world, how does a character who's a kitchen sponge, how do you make those come to life in a three-dimensional way? We just started to answer those questions and began to show work in front of people to see kind of how they accepted SpongeBob or the world of the thing, how far away we could move and still feel like that they were seeing the world and the people that they recognized, the characters that they recognized. And what we learned was you could move really far away from it. In fact, Ethan embodied SpongeBob so much, he could just be in a t-shirt. Like it's fine. You don't need to do much. And it's true, we didn't need to do much with them. So that was such a freedom and such a kind of blessing in a way, because it really allowed us to just let the people that we brought into this world shine. And then found a way to build the world of Bikini Bottom. It's that crazy thing in theater where you like point at a chair and you say, that's a rock. And everybody's just like, okay, that's a rock. We really exploited that and used that in a way that was also very freeing, which is like, we can just point at a bunch of pool noodles and say, that's kelp. And people are like, that's kelp, that's great. And enjoy the fun of the leaps of logic that we're asking them to take. There's a very famous episode of SpongeBob, of the series, where SpongeBob and Patrick order a television. It comes to them in a cardboard box, and they take the television out, and then they play all day inside the box, because that's like the most fun. And that is absolutely, that spirit is the way that we've tried to come to the material, not only by literally, there's cardboard boxes all over and they have to climb all these mountains of cardboard boxes, but just like, here's a thing, here's a ladder, here's a pool noodle, here's a cooler, here's a surfboard, here's a water bottle, here's a Nerf ball, here's an old boom box. Just turn them into something wonderful. The color was important. Obviously the blue was sort of a no-brainer for the underwater world. As a place to begin, and we definitely wanted you to feel like you walked into a festival of blue and underwateriness. SpongeBob in the musical faces an obstacle. He has to climb Mount Humongous, which is a soon-to-explode volcano. How do you represent something like that? In a world of blue, you do some basic color theory and go to the opposite color. And of course, orange not only means danger, but also is the opposite color of blue. So it felt like it was an appropriate place to put a bunch of orange and make something that was equally strong and a world that we kind of hadn't seen before until we actually get to the mountain. The volcano, the Mount Humongous scene, is backed by an enormous dimensional stack of orange cardboard boxes, of which this is a rough model piece of. And then the things that they have to climb are these sort of wonderful, like, factory carts of cardboard boxes that contain a bunch of different obstacles for SpongeBob and Sandy to climb. They also have to climb, we made these kind of crazy ladder sculptures that are ladders, obviously climbing a mountain, ladders seemed like a good, a way to indicate that you have to climb things. Ultimately, SpongeBob has to scale a large ladder wall, but he also has to kind of climb these crazy rolling ladder sculptures at some point. We also blow, with big orange fans, we blow a bunch of orange confetti at him and Sandy as they try to make their journey.
Zinn illustrates the challenges of making the characters come to life by taking a closer look at some of the costumes.
Sandy's a good case in point in terms of like costuming character in a way that's different from what she looks like in the series. Sandy on the series has ears and a tail. We tried ears and we tried a tail. A found them to be cumbersome because also she's a sort of great karate master and we really wanted the actor playing her to have the freedom she needed to do all those moves. But also there was a point at which it felt a little like children's theater in an illustrative way, in a way that we were trying to move away from, to like have the squirrel. We'd taken these other kind of leaps with the characters and felt like we can do this without the tail. So we sort of captured the sense of her helmet with her hairdo. She has a big, wonderful afro with her trademark flower in it. When she's outside of her bubble, she wears a spacesuit and a space helmet, or a pressurized helmet so she can breathe. So we turned that into kind of an awesome jumpsuit that we wanted just to be sort of cute and wearable, but also strong and tough and a sort of awesome, like, badass girl thing to wear. Ethan's just like, in a way, it's like the simplest costume, you know. Ethan never stops moving. He dances, he breakdances, he does the splits, he climbs a wall, he goes upside down, he does just this in constant motion. And so we really needed something that served him practically, and that meant that we just couldn't have things that got in the way. We tried him in shorts, we tried him in, he'd been in any number of things. He was in a yellow wig at some point, but ultimately we just found like all of that stuff got in the way of Ethan and his sort of wonderful humanness. And so we sort of pulled all that stuff away. We nod to the character. We could capture a few elements of the cartoon so that they were recognizable, but could leave we really could even leave like the shapes and stuff of them behind. Like, we just had to kind of hold on to a few things to key people into who was who, and I think otherwise we really found a kind of new human world for them.
As audiences enter the human world of SpongeBob, Zinn hopes they feel the fun and joy of the new musical.
I think when you leave the theater, I want you to feel like you've had a fantastic time, that you've been to a really great party with a bunch of crazy people that you never knew before. And I hope that you also are touched by the message of friendship. There's something so contagious about the way that SpongeBob deals with the world, and I think it's hard not to have some of that rub off on you, and that seems great.